When it comes to air quality, the bad news is that wildfires and air pollution have really degraded the quality of our air. But the good news is that we're all realizing that the quality of our air, and particularly the quality of our indoor air, is really darn important. I'm so excited to tell you about Puro Air because in 30 minutes, this device will remove allergens, dust, smoke, and gases from your room. It uses a stronger type of filter called a HEPA 14, and it filters pollutants at a microscopic level. I keep my Puro Air running upstairs where the bedrooms are all night. I love that it's quiet. Cleaner air just hits different, doesn't it? Check out everything Puro Air has to offer at getpuroair.com. That's GETPUROAIR.com. One more time for the people in the back, getpuroair.com. This just in, you can cross meal prepping off your list this holiday season with Factor. Skip the meal planning, the grocery shopping, the chopping, and the prepping, and the cleaning up, and get Factor's fresh, never frozen meals delivered to your door. Not only are they ready in just 2 minutes, but let me tell you, they are ridiculously tasty. And I mean super darn tasty. All you have to do is heat up and enjoy. With Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. They offset 100% of their delivery emissions and source 100% renewable energy. If you don't know, now you know. Factor isn't just for dinner. Count on extra convenience any time of day with breakfast items, lunch to go, and more. Head to factormeals.com/sustainable50 and use code sustainable50 to get 50% off. That's code sustainable50 at factormeals.com/sustainable50 for 50% off. Well, hello and welcome back. My name is Stephanie Safarian and you're listening to episode 431 of Sustainable Minimalist. This is a show about intentional and eco-friendly minimalist living. On today's show, we're breaking down the intricacies of New York State's Digital Fair Repair Act, which just recently went into effect. And guess what? It is good news for all of us. New Yorkers, yes, of course, but also non-New Yorkers too. Now, before we talk about the law, let's set the stage by chatting for a quick moment about your smartphone. Chances are real good you're listening to my voice on your smartphone right this moment. How old is your phone? Are you a frequent updater of your tech, or do you keep your phone, your laptop, your tablet for as long as humanly possible? Well, your smartphone's life begins in mines all around the world. And in these mines, finite minerals are extracted. Those minerals then get transported to factories where they're refined, often using high temperatures, of course, being code for using significant energy. Then these minerals are turned into batteries, wires, logic boards, motors, and more, all of these parts of which will become your smartphone and other tech devices. These components, then they're transported again to even more factories. In these factories, they'll be assembled into the complete device. The complete device will be then sent to your go-to store and sold around the world. Now, this is just the before life of your cell phone, and the manufacturing process is indeed taxing on the planet. According to one study, 1.4 billion smartphones are forecasted to be shipped this year. And those 1.4 billion new smartphones, they will generate 146 million tons of planet warming emissions. These are big numbers. And now let's say the phone you're holding in your hand breaks. It's an iPhone. Let's just, for sake of argument, it's an iPhone. So you go to your local Apple store and the Apple repair person tells you, this is a really expensive problem. It's a hard fix. It's cheaper for you to just buy a new one. Let's upgrade. Manufacturers have historically made it really darn difficult to repair devices. They've made it so difficult that replacing the device often looks like an easier solution than fixing it. However, if we could more easily repair our devices, we wouldn't have to replace it as frequently, right? And if we're not replacing as frequently, we are doing our part to tackle our environmental problems. Enter the right to repair movement. It calls for laws to require device makers to release everything we need to have our tech fixed by independent shops, or if we're so inclined, fix our tech ourselves. And guess which state just had one such law go into effect? Yes, that's right, my friends. It is New York, baby. Here to help me break down the intricacies of the law and also tell us how those of us who don't live in New York are going to benefit is Nicholas de Leon. Nicholas is a senior reporter for Consumer Reports, and I have a lot of questions. Nicholas, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. Why don't we start by you telling us the need to know details about this new law?
Yeah, so this law has been a long time coming. New York Governor Kathy Hochul actually signed it last December, so December of 22. It goes into effect about a week ago. And so basically the idea is that this has to do with something called right to repair. And right to repair is basically the idea that you as a consumer should have the right to take your device, your electronics device, whether it's a laptop, a phone, a TV, you name it, and get it repaired at the repair shop of your choosing, which may sound strange. But, in the past, consumers did not. First of all, they didn't have the right to do that. They were often effectively forced to take their devices back to the manufacturer or back to an authorized repair center. So if you drop your phone, if you spill coffee in your laptop, and you wanted to get it fixed, which that's a natural, want to get it fixed, you were often more or less required to take it back to the manufacturer or the authorized repair center. An authorized repair center is just a repair shop that has a relationship with the manufacturer. So why is that, who cares? Why is that a big deal? A couple of reasons. One, either the manufacturer or authorized repair center, they could charge more for repair. So if your screen broke, or again, you spill coffee on your laptop or whatever, they may charge a certain amount that perhaps an independent repair store would charge less for. So it's a money thing for sure. And it's also a time thing. Repairs, authorized repair centers and official, Apple stores and things like that. There's not an infinite number of them. There's a limited number of them. For example, my father, who lives in New York State, he lives in the Hudson Valley. The nearest Apple store is about an hour away. So if he drops his phone, in the past, he was more or less, on the hook to drive an hour to the Apple store to get it repaired. Now, he can take it to a local repair shop in his little town in the Hudson Valley and get it repaired much faster, much more easy, and potentially for less money. So it's basically about empowering consumers and giving them the choice to repair their devices at somewhere other than the manufacturer or a manufacturer, blessed organization.
As you're talking there, I am having flashbacks to the last time one of my beloved tech items broke. It was my laptop. I had a podcast episode to get out. I opened it up and there were pink squiggly lines all around the screen. I couldn't see anything. And so what do? I'm fortunate enough. First of all, I am fortunate to have an Apple store nearby. So I made an appointment. I got one for, that afternoon. I was really lucky. And then I went in and they basically threw their hands up and said, "You're out of warranty. To fix this is going to be a lot more money than it's worth. You should just buy a new one." I have no idea if that's true or not because I didn't have the right to go to some other repair option. And so assuming I lived in New York and assuming this situation happened again, I opened my computer and it was broken, how will this law help New Yorkers?
Well, let's say in that exact scenario, if Apple says, well, this is going to cost way more than it's worth, you might as well just get a new one. Okay, well, that's Apple's opinion. If you go down the street to your local repair shop and he's like, well, actually, I could repair this. This is not going to cost you that much. I have the skill. I have the parts. This will cost you X, and then it's up to you. So it gives you the choice. Before you were beholden to what Apple said, you could have walked out of the store with a broken laptop, or you could have relented and paid, probably thousands of dollars for a new laptop. So what this does is it opens up the universe of possibilities for consumers into making that choice and say, well, do I want a new laptop? Do I want a new phone? If they're telling me it's going to cost this amount, maybe I should just go ahead and buy a new one. Okay, fine. That's your opinion. But then you go down the street and this guy says, oh, heck, I could do that in an afternoon and it'll cost you way less than what they're telling you. And then you're oh, okay. Well, that's great. That little scenario would not have been possible without the Digital Fair Repair Act.
I know that this is a bit of a stretch to make a comparison between a broken laptop and, let's say, a broken arm or some other health issue. But if you had a big health issue and your doctor said you need surgery tomorrow, you might want to get a second opinion. And prior to this Digital Fair Repair Act, people in New York did not have the option necessarily to get that second opinion. And by the way, why would I trust? I did trust Apple. I did buy a new computer, if anybody's wondering, but it's in Apple's best interest for me to buy a new computer. It's not in my best interest, and it's certainly not in the planet's best interest if we're going to talk about e-waste, which we'll get to in a minute. But a couple more clarifying questions on this law. Am I correct in understanding that it only covers laptops and tablets and cell phones? It does not cover, a New Yorker's dishwasher or freezer. Why not?
Yeah. The government office hasn't said explicitly why it doesn't cover. Those are known as white goods in the industry, refrigerators, things like that. So they haven't given a specific reason. The only thing that I know is that the right to repair, kind of as the movement has existed for the, let's say, decade or so, there has been a real focus on consumer electronics devices just because these are so plentiful. Everybody has a phone, everybody has a laptop, and these things break all the time. Your phone, you drop it in the parking lot, you spill coffee on your laptop at the Starbucks. So there's like a lot of potential, a lot of surface area there for these devices to break in ways that are annoying but easily fixable. That's one of the things about the right to repair movement. I've spoken to so many, people on all sides of this issue. And I remember years ago talking to the manufacturers, lobbyists representing the manufacturers, and they were always trying to spread it's called FUD in the industry, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that, it's very complicated to fix a phone screen. You can't just let anybody repair it, which is like, okay, maybe not the average person on the street is going to fix a phone screen, but any trained technician, this is not brain surgery. This is swapping one screen for another. So it's not that hard. And so the idea that they were trying to propagate this idea that like, oh, this is way too complicated for even like a skilled repairman. It's like, that's ridiculous. These are devices like any other. There are parts, there are tools, there are schematics available for folks who have the skill, or just the time to sit there and learn how to do this. It shouldn't be shrouded in mystery. Like, oh my God, my iPhone, the screen broke. What am I going to do? I guess I have to take it to Apple. It's like, well, no, it's just a screen. You get a new one and you put it in. This is not that complicated. So
I'm glad you mentioned that, because you're again bringing me back in time to the last time I dropped my phone. Shattered the screen. I was told you need to replace this, and I could still use the phone, right? But I was even told by the person I brought it into, I was told that bacteria will harbor in there and you really need to just get it fixed or get a new phone immediately. And I don't even remember what I ended up doing, but the point is that I didn't have the knowledge to refute that. They were like the expert, and here I am, just the consumer who needs a working phone. And so I'm wondering if this new law for New Yorkers, again, not for me, not for you, but if I wanted to fix my phone or my laptop, I don't because I have no skills. But if I did, does the law force, for lack of a better word, does the law force these tech companies to make self-repair programs readily available to people who have bought their products?
What the law actually does is it forces manufacturers to make repair parts, software, tools, documentation, so schematics, things like that, all the things you would need to repair a laptop or repair a phone, and make that available to kind of two parties. One, everyday consumers. You, me, anyone should be able to go to Apple or Samsung and say, I want to repair my own phone. I want to repair my own laptop. We will not have access to those parts and documentation It's not that it's not that the parts are free. It's not where we're demanding free screens or whatever, but it's being made available to us where, in the past that was not available to us. That was only available to Apple itself and their authorized repair centers. So everyday consumers and independent repair shops. So if I have, Nicholas's repair shop on Main Street, I'm not affiliated with any manufacturer. I just repair, anything that folks want to bring in. If I have the skill to repair it, then I will repair it. And I get the parts. I order it from the manufacturer. I get the schematics and all that stuff. It just opens up the ability for folks other than the manufacturer or their official authorized dealers to engage in repair. So that's specifically what the law does.
So this sounds to me like a lot of pros for consumers. More consumer rights, reduced harmful e-waste. Are there any cons, though, in your view and in your reporting?
The only you're right that there's a lot of good here. There is a lot of good here. This is what we've kind of taken to accept this as. This is a very good first step. This is not necessarily the end of the line. Like I was saying, the right to repair movement has been around kind of in its present form for a little more than a decade. But this is not the end of the story. Everyone's not like popping champagne bottles. Hey, it's finished. We did it. This is a great first step. Obviously, New York is a big state. There are other states out there who have passed similar legislation, including probably most notably California. But it's not finished yet. We would like to see the universe of devices covered by such legislation to include, refrigerators, to include, there's actually some uncertainty as to whether it covers video game consoles. So like a PlayStation or Nintendo Switch. It's actually unclear whether or not this law covers that. So we want to see more devices covered in this law. And, there's also the potential for, so there's a handful of states where this is in effect. We can get into like whether or not this affects, if you live in Texas, does this affect you type of thing. We would like to see more states pass, more laws, maybe more comprehensive laws. Maybe we want to see national legislation. There are kind of pros and cons to that. Maybe a national legislation will actually be less comprehensive than the New York state law. And in which case, of course, if it's national legislation, it would supersede the New York list. So it's like, there's pros and cons there, but the idea is that we would like to see more done. We would like to, have consumers have more power over their devices and be able to get them repaired wherever they want. So yeah, it's not done. We're not resting on law. It's important to step back and recognize that this is actually very good. This has been the product of, not just folks like, Consumer Reports has long been a supporter of right to repair, but it's not just us out there. There are other activist groups, there are other organizations, there are just everyday people. I've been reporting on this topic for about a decade, give or take. And you just talk to everyday folks who just get upset with the idea that, why don't I have the ability to repair? Like, I bought this device. Why do I have to listen to where Apple says I have to get it repaired? Why do I have to listen to where Samsung was like, this is mine? As a slight aside, I remember being on a conversation with one of the lobbyists back in the day saying, if I buy a toaster, let's say, and I want to smash it with a hammer, that's no one's business but me. It's like the toaster company doesn't get to say that, like, well, no, you. It's like, no, I bought it. It's mine. I'm sorry. If I bought this phone, I want to be able to take it to Apple. I want to be able to take it to Nicholas's repair shop. I want to be able, maybe there's, it's up to me. It's my thing. Like that idea of ownership and the idea of saying like, no, this is mine. I bought it from you, but you don't have any further say so in how I handle this device. So there's a lot of folks who are very happy to see that this legislation is now on the books. But at the same time, there are folks who are saying, again, the fight's not over. There's more that can be done. And, we will keep fighting. So,
well, as this podcast's host, it's lovely for me for once to report on some good news. And this is good news because from my perspective and from the place where I sit, where my passion is environmental issues, this is a great start with regard to stepping back from our culture's susceptibility, perhaps, towards disposability. So, something's broken, let's just get rid of it and get a new one. This really can extend the life of our tech. Our research abounds that keeping our phone or our tablet or our laptop just one extra year is a profound way to reduce, again, the e-waste problem. And again, also reduce metals in the pre-production. And so you touched on it, Nicholas, and we're going to take our break. But after our break, I'm going to ask you whether Americans who do not live in New York, have no plans to move to New York, whether these Americans, you and me, whether we'll see any benefit to this new law. So we'll get there after a quick sponsor break. Something you may not know about me, I do love a little luxury in my life, but that does not mean I can always afford it. Enter Quince. Quince offers high-quality items at prices that are within my reach, and that's because Quince partners directly with top factories. They cut out the cost of the middleman, and the savings are passed on to you and me. My 100% Mongolian cashmere sweater is my number one go-to favorite this winter. Give yourself the luxury you deserve with Quince. Go to quince.com/sustainable podcast for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. QUINCE.com/sustainable podcast to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/sustainable podcast. As a sustainable minimalist listener, you already know that fast furniture is a major environmental problem, and that's why I'm so excited to introduce you to Home Threads, your ally in finding sustainable and minimalist home decor. Home Threads helps you discover furniture that complements your minimalist lifestyle, yes, and also respects the planet. Their pieces are thoughtfully crafted using sustainable materials, and they don't compromise on style. I have an outdoor bench from Home Threads, and I love that it's made of acacia wood. It is sturdy. It is strong. It's meant to last, and more importantly, it's made with renewable materials. No synthetics to be found here. Create a home that reflects your commitment to the environment. Visit homethreads.com/sustainable for 15% off your first order. Home Threads, love where you live. And we're back. Today, I'm speaking with Nicholas De Leon. He is a senior reporter over at Consumer Reports. He often covers issues surrounding laptops, wireless routers, tablets, and more. Phew, what topics, Nicholas? We're into that part of the show where I'm sure my listeners are on the edge of their seats. They want to know whether they will see any benefit from New York's new law, even though they don't live in New York.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And that was honestly one of my questions when this bill was kind of making its way through the New York state legislature. It's like, is this going to affect, what if I live in New Jersey? What if I live in Texas? And the answer is yes, probably, in a real, direct way. So basically what's going to happen is, all the manufacturers, Apple, say, what's going to happen is they're going to set up websites where they're going to make available their, like we said, their parts, documentation, all the things that are needed to repair a phone, repair a laptop, and so on. It would make no sense for them after having set up this entire infrastructure of, okay, now we got to get repair parts. We have to have some number of repair parts in the warehouse. We have to make these documentation, which will likely be PDFs, available. We have to make all this stuff available. Why, after taking the trouble to make all of this stuff available, are they going to limit that to residents of New York State? That doesn't make any sense. So we do not anticipate, if you live in Texas and you go to the Samsung repair website or the Apple repair, that there's going to be some big error message that says, oh, you live in Texas, we can't help you. That doesn't make any sense. They are at least the repair parts, they are selling that to you. We anticipate the documentation, the PDF. We expect that to kind of just propagate freely over the internet anyway. So at the very least, there will be that kind of base level of education now spreading, worldwide. It's like, oh, this is how you repair an iPhone. Oh, this is how you repair the Dell laptop. You don't have to even live in the United States. I mean, the Dell laptop, whether you buy it in America or whether you buy it in, Italy, that's the same laptop. So now you will have, oh, okay, now I know how to fix it. Whether or not, if you live in Italy, the repair parts that I can't speak to, but at the very least, the this information will be readily available in a way that it wasn't. And, like I said, it would be very surprising for these manufacturers to restrict access to any of these parts to literally only residents of New York State. Now, also being said, there are other states that are passing legislation. So it may even be, illegally, like California, I believe Minnesota, I believe Colorado, or have all passed or in the process of passing similar bills that would require manufacturers to, on paper, make all this stuff available to residents of those states. But, there was a similar bill for automobiles. I want to say maybe 2012. I believe Massachusetts was a state that passed kind of a Massachusetts automobile right to repair. Hey, you could take your Toyota to whatever. You don't have to go to the dealership to fix the car. You could take it to whatever mechanic you want. And the auto manufacturers just said, look, it makes no sense to just make these parts and stuff only available to residents of Massachusetts. We're just going to open it up to everyone because why fight this at that point? And also there are, public relations considerations. It's like, well, if I live in New York State, okay, great. But what if I live in Texas? Why do you hate the people of Texas? There's all those reasons that get kind of like, is this worth fight? No, at this point, it's not worth. The resistance doesn't make any sense. So we do anticipate that, everyone in all 50 states should benefit from this. So it is not the case where, well, if you don't live in New York State, you're out of luck. We don't think that's going to be the case.
Great. You mentioned the car issue there. You made the analogy to, your car is broken. Can you imagine if we, owned a Toyota and your car was broken and you could only get it fixed at a Toyota dealership? Is that the right analogy? Is that similar?
That is the analogy we use all the time, actually, in our events, in our articles, and engagement with the community. Because, a lot of, maybe if you live in New York City, you probably don't own a car, but a lot of people own a car and they're used to the idea of repairing it. Oh, the check engine light or whatever. The idea of having to go back to the dealership, either the one where you bought the car from or just a dealership, is that doesn't make any sense for us. Like, why can't I just take it to the mechanic down the street? He fixes cars all the time. Is he not qualified to do this? So it is a very comparable, situation where, hey, my laptop broke. Why would I be required? If you want to take it to Samsung, if you want to take it to Apple, that hasn't changed. You can still take it to the Apple store if you trust Apple more, or if I don't want to deal. That's good. That's great. All this does is it gives you the option to take it to someone else.
Well, Nicholas, it all sounds good, but I must say I am somewhat of a cynical human being. And it seems to me that while having the right to repair is certainly a decent first step, it does seem like the e-waste problem in particular will persist because many of these tech items that we're talking about, the laptops, the phones, the tablets, they're made to break. They have cheap parts inside that do indeed and are made to break shortly after the warranty. So it could almost be said, I could make the argument that, we're repairing cheap trash to begin with.
Yeah.
What am I missing here?
This is an area where consumers don't have sort of direct influence over this. Unfortunately, we are not able to tell Apple or Dell or Samsung to use these materials instead of those materials. We're not saying, we want these devices to last X number of years, other than, hey, if a device sells, that must mean consumers like it. Or if a device doesn't sell, that must mean consumers don't like it. We don't really have a lot of levers here to pull to sort of influence manufacturing. This is where we think that this does become a policy question. This is okay. So we've got this right to repair law passed. That's great. And it has certain provisions to encourage repair and to make repair more broadly accessible. It may be a case where we need additional legislation, whether the state legislation or national legislation, to encourage manufacturers to use safer materials, to use better materials, to use longer lasting materials. Because you're right, a landfill filled with 1 million broken laptops, that doesn't do anybody any favors. At least with repair, maybe you're able to extend the life of that laptop, a year or two. And the funny thing about gadgets nowadays is that, if you buy a phone today, that phone is certainly powerful enough. It's got a great camera, the whole 9 yards. There's no reason why a consumer would necessarily be compelled to buy the new phone next year or even 2 years later. Hey, it's pretty good. I just spent $1,000 on this phone. I'm pretty much set for like a while. I'm going to use this until I can't. And there's no reason why that can't be many years. Oftentimes what will happen is the battery, batteries have a finite number of charge cycles. Maybe the battery will go, okay, great. But the rest of the phone is fine. Maybe the phone dies in 3 hours now. But you know what the solution there is? The solution is not to buy a new phone. It's just to get a new battery. And a new battery, put it in, it's good as new. And if you're someone who, use your phone, let's say for, you text your spouse or you just listen to music, these are not very demanding activities that you need to buy the latest phone every autumn. So to your point, this may be one of the situations where we may need additional legislation. We may need additional levers to sort of encourage manufacturers to be a little bit more thoughtful and to be a little bit more considerate about how they're actually constructing these devices.
Well, you write in your article published on Consumer Reports, I will link to it in the show notes, that there's a real opportunity at this moment to get similar laws passed in other states. You mentioned in our conversation some other states that are going through the process of having a similar law passed as we speak. Can you just talk to me a little bit more about this opportunity? Where can listeners who are passionate about their right to repair join the movement? Tell me all of that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. There are plenty of ways to get involved. For starters, you could follow and read publications like Consumer Reports, where we do a lot of original reporting here. Consumer Reports also has a policy wing where we are kind of involved in trying to talk to legislators, be like, hey, this is important to consumers, therefore it's important to us, therefore it should be important to you as someone who ostensibly represents consumers, to think more thoughtfully about this and to try to come to a solution here. There are other organizations, of course, beyond Consumer Reports. iFixit is a big one. Kyle Wiens at iFixit, a friend of mine from many, many years ago. I would call him kind of the unofficial leader of this movement. He kind of kickstarted this thing more than a decade ago. So iFixit is a great organization. And of course, just get involved, literally, write a letter to your local congressman, write a letter to your governor. These people listen to, they don't know what they don't know type of thing. So unless you let them know that this is important to you in ways that may be beneficial to their governorship or their stewardship of their office, this is important. This is a big deal. I think one of the things that I've noticed over my many, many years of covering technology is the idea that consumers are now way more aware of and way more passionate about the idea of sustainability, of the idea of these devices being, that they'll last a while. If you had asked me 10 years ago, if anyone cared that their laptop was made of, some percentage of recycled materials or no one, that was not on people's radar. It is on people's radar now. So that is a direct action of folks, such as ourselves at Consumer Reports and other publications and activists to raise awareness of these devices.
I keep going back in my mind, Nicholas, to your analogy of the car that needs repairs. You can only go to the Toyota dealership and the Toyota representative says, oh, sorry, this problem is such a huge problem. We can't fix it, or it's going to cost so much money. You should really just buy a new car. Oh, and by the way, look, you're already here in the showroom. Go check out what's new. We would not stand for that, would we? And so we shouldn't stand for it with our tech either. Well, Nicholas, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate your reporting on this issue, the New York Digital Fair Repair Act. Thank you again, Nicholas, and Happy New Year.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year.
Listeners, that's a wrap, my friends. I'm going to keep it short today and just say I'll see you Thursday. Reach out if you need me, and take care.